The Witchwarper is one of the most obscure class to come back for Starfinder 2nd edition, and at first glance, nobody's ever heard of it and has no idea what it does. But let me tell you, it is one of the most creative classes I've ever read in a TTRPG. Howdy, my name is Nonat and welcome to my Witchwarper guide for the Starfinder 2nd edition playtest. You might notice that this video is shockingly short for a video that is about an entire class. Compared to things like my Barbarian and Oracle deep dives, this is way shorter. And that's because this is just the playtest for Starfinder 2nd edition. Yes, we do have the next full year to play and enjoy it, but I don't want to make hour-and-a-half long videos about classes that are going to change. So what you get out of this video is every single thing available to the class at level 1. We're not going to be going over every single feat available to the class. We're not going to be going over every single class feature. I'm going to be teaching you everything you need to make a level 1 Witchwarper for your playtest game. So strap in, leave a like, leave a comment telling me what you had for breakfast, and join me in appreciating everybody on screen right now who is pledged to the Nonat1's Patreon and supports me for $10 a month. If you would like to do the same to help keep the channel going, there's a link in the description where you can assist as well. I appreciate every single person who does this every single month. Y'all are the lifeblood of this channel. Thank you so much. Let's get to the Witchwarper. Starfinder 2e has one class for every single different ability modifier, 6 classes, 6 ability modifiers, and the Witchwarper is our intelligence-based class. It's very easy up front to say, oh, intelligence-based, that's the space wizard. No. Before we get any farther into the Witchwarper's mechanical abilities, I think it's important to just state what the Witchwarper is. The Witchwarper is a paradoxical glitch in reality. If you are playing a Witchwarper, you are not supposed to be here. This can mean you are from a different timeline, you are from a different reality, you might not even be the original you that's supposed to be in this universe. And because of that paradoxical glitch, you have gained the ability to manipulate reality around you by accessing other timelines, other paradoxes. Everything in the multiverse is at your disposal if you can figure out how to access it. The Witchwarper gets 8 plus their con mod and hit points every single level and begins the game trained in perception, trained in fortitude and reflex saves, and expert in will saves. They begin the game trained in 3 skills plus their intelligence modifier, plus 1 or more skills from one of their subclasses, the Paradox. Witchwarpers get 2 subclasses, their Paradox and their Anchor, which I will be going over later. But the Witchwarper is not a simple class. It is in fact pretty damn complicated. They're trained in simple weapons, light armor, and of course, spell attack rolls, spell DCs, and their Witchwarper class DC. In case you didn't know, Starfinder, working exactly like Pathfinder, means that any character you make at level 1 does get 4 free ability boosts to any 4 different modifiers at character creation. You get boosts from your ancestry, background, your key ability modifier from your class, for the Witchwarper it would be intelligence, and then any 4 separate boosts you want. The first decision you need to make as a Witchwarper is your specific paradox. Why are you here? What happened? What has caused you to glitch and pop into reality and grant you these special powers? There is a bunch of different options, and we're going to go over all of them right now. Your paradox is going to determine 5 things for your character. The tradition of your spell casting, meaning the Witchwarper is not just arcane, it's going to grant you additional spells that you can cast that may not even be on that tradition spell list. It's going to grant you additional trained proficiencies in certain skills. It's going to alter the effects of the Witchwarper's custom quantum field ability, and it's going to grant you a unique warp spell, which is the Witchwarper's focus spells. Let's get into them. Before we get into the paradox itself, it's important to go over the Witchwarper's quantum field. This is a unique action every single Witchwarper can take, and your subclass is going to change how it works slightly. For one action, you can warp reality, allowing you to put down a 15-foot radius burst anywhere within 100 feet. This creates a zone of effect that you will be able to, as it states, warp the reality within. What's important though is you have a lot of abilities with the anchoring trait, including all of your warp spell focus spells. This means you can only use those actions, and by extension cast those focus spells, while your warp reality quantum field is active. Now it does state you do not need to be inside the quantum field, it just needs to be active. By default, the quantum field does not change or affect anything, but it does need to be sustained. So one action every single turn is going to be used to keep your warp quantum field active on the battlefield. In addition to manually sustaining your quantum field, there is one additional way to keep it on the field without wasting the action, and this is using anything with the aforementioned anchoring trait, namely your warp spells. Anything that has the anchoring trait can only be used while your quantum field is active. However, when they are used, it sustains your quantum field. This actually gets even better because at 3rd level, when they unlock their signature spells, anytime they use their signature spells, specifically while the field is active, they gain that trait and auto-sustain the quantum field. So there's a lot of ways to keep that field active, and it's not nearly as action-taxing as it might seem at first glance. And while we're on the subject of specific traits to the class, some abilities also have the zone trait. This is super simple. Their effects only apply to the zone of your quantum field and everything within it. Simple as that. Additionally, any quantum field can only be under a single zone effect at one time. I'll put an example of a zone effect on screen right now so you know what I'm talking about. Starting with the analyst paradox, you are a product of the infinite math computer equation that runs the universe. Whether this means the universe is a literal matrix or it is simply metaphorical for the code of reality, it has created you in a bit of a paradoxical glitch where the equation shouldn't make sense. But as such, you yourself, the analyst Witchwarper, can see parts of that universal equation. The analyst casts using the arcane spellcasting tradition and gains the computer's skill trained proficiency. It also grants the analyze target cantrip and starts you with the warp probability focus spell. Warp probability is easily one of the most universally useful focus spells I've ever read, and it's so short. As a reaction, if you fail an attack roll or saving throw, re-roll it and use the better result. That's phenomenal, on a spellcaster especially, where spell attack rolls are notably lower than normal weapon attack rolls. Being able to just spend a focus point to re-roll your highest level spell slot spell attack that you missed is incredible. That might not only get you the damage you were going to lose, but also not waste the spell slot as a whole. That is the worst feeling as a spellcaster, when you miss a spell attack roll and your spell slot is just gone along with the rest of that turn, basically. This is so nice to have in your back pocket. And the analyst's quantum field makes them incredibly efficient at recalling knowledge on things within the quantum field. When you seek or recall knowledge on a creature that is inside the effect of your quantum field, you can also recall knowledge on a related creature. If you're seeking 2 assassins who are cloaked within your quantum field, you can seek action one of them and then automatically seek the other one with the same roll. And to make this even better, you get to do this as a free action every time you sustain your quantum field. So it might suck that you need to sustain it for an action every turn, but when you do, you get 2 seek actions for free, or 2 recall knowledge actions for free. Very powerful, very useful, and makes sense for something that is analyzing the battlefield at all times. The anomaly Witchwarper is, even more so than other Witchwarpers, not supposed to be here. You are likely from a different reality or possibly a different timeline that coexists alongside all other realities within the multiverse, but because you're in the wrong one, you've gained the ability to warp in aspects of other realities into yours. The anomaly Witchwarper casts using the arcane tradition and is trained in the deception skill. They begin with the Eldritch Lance cantrip, which, yes, it's basically Pathfinder's Eldritch Blast, and the Warp Terrain warp spell. Warp Terrain, for one action, allows you to spend the focus point to alter the terrain within your quantum field by bringing in aspects of other realities. Mechanically, this lets you pick one of 3 different options. The first is awesome and can be used super tactically. The entirety of your quantum field becomes difficult terrain only for your enemies. You and your allies can move through this terrain totally normally, and you can even take cover behind it to give bonuses to AC against ranged attacks. How cool is that? That this is actual terrain, but because it's so glitchy in reality, you and your allies can ignore this terrain when you want to, but also use it as cover when you want to. That's so freaking cool. You can also do the completely opposite effect, where within your quantum field, if it is already difficult terrain or even greater difficult terrain, you can replace it with completely normal terrain, allowing you and your allies to move normally through it. Now, you can't smooth out any terrain that was created by a creature that specifically affects the squares around that creature, and if the terrain was created magically by a spell effect that creates difficult terrain, you do need to make a counteract check to remove that magical difficult terrain. But if it's just naturally difficult because it's super unsteady ground, the earth is shaking, then you can just smooth that out within your little bubble. Very nice. At character level 5, you unlock a new option which allows you to just fill your entire quantum field with fog. This basically functions exactly like the mist spell. Everything inside becomes concealed to everything outside. And at character level 11, you can cause the terrain you create inside your field to be greater difficult terrain, which makes every single square cost, I believe, 15 feet of movement to move into. Absolutely wild, and can really lock down some enemies if they can't fly. Although, keep in mind, it's a 15-foot burst for your quantum field. That counts as up, too. So if they are on the ground, even if they want to fly away, that's going to be 15 feet of difficult terrain vertically, too. And your quantum field, as long as it's sustained on the battlefield, constantly is projecting images and sensory of other realities, disrupting the concentration of any creature within it. Any creature inside of your quantum field that attempts to take an action with the concentrate trait all need to make a flat DC 5 check on a D20 or lose their concentration and fizzle the action. If you throw this down on top of enemy spellcasters, they either have to waste actions moving out of it or risk losing their spells entirely. Phenomenal anti-spellcaster effect. The Gap-influenced Witchwarper is someone who lived and survived the Gap. The Gap is a mysterious era in Starfinder's history that nobody knows anything about. There's no record of civilizations or progress or anything that happened during this time period, but in one way or another, you are related to the mysteries of the Gap, and it has given you reality warping powers. The Gap-influenced Witchwarper casts using the occult spell list and is trained in society. They start with the Daze cantrip and gain the Warp Presence warp spell. Warp Presence is absolutely one of the coolest freaking spells I've seen in Pathfinder Starfinder. As a reaction, if a creature targets you with a strike or a spell attack and they haven't rolled yet, you can spend your focus point to attempt to erase yourself from their view of reality. I can't even put it into better terms, but for a brief moment, you no longer exist for that creature, depending on their will save. If they succeed their saving throw, you become concealed against them, including the attack that's going on right now for 1 round, meaning they just have a flat 20% chance to miss you this round, or if you were already concealed, you become undetected, which is going to inflict the same penalty, I believe, as hidden. This doesn't cancel their attack at all, but it does make them far less likely to hit you. If they fail their saving throw, their attack automatically misses without them even making an attack roll, and you vanish from their sight for 1 round. You are undetected either until the round is over or you take a hostile action. Just straight up like invisibility. And critical failure is the same, except you are undetected for 1 minute, meaning you can just use this. If they crit fail their saving throw, you can just walk away. Like, as long as you're quiet, not making a lot of sounds, you can just walk away from the situation and leave. I love this feat so much. Granted, it only works on a single enemy. And this quantum field effect is pretty useful. As long as a creature is within your quantum field, they are surrounded by shadowy static that causes you to be concealed to them. As long as the creature is inside the field, you, the Witchwarper, are always concealed, whether you are inside or outside of the field itself. However, if they do manage to land a single hit on you, they can see you clearly until the start of your next turn. And finally, the precog paradox is probably the easiest to understand. You're not in the right time period. Whether you came from the past or were flung from the future, you have gained supernatural abilities to read through time. The precog casts using the occult tradition and starts proficient in piloting and gains the Injury Echo cantrip as well as the Warp Time warp spell. Warp time allows you to warp the time inside your quantum field. You can choose to rewind or fast forward. If you rewind to an earlier time in your life when you weren't quite as injured. Honestly, I don't know why they made this so quote-unquote balanced, because it only gives you 10 temporary hit points for 1 minute. I guess it's supposed to reflect that this time reversal is temporary and eventually you do snap back to your current time when you are still injured again, so I guess it makes sense. If you choose to fast forward, you target a creature within your quantum field who takes 1d12 void damage on a basic fortitude save. Then on top of the basic save, if they fail, they are enfeebled 1. For no listed amount of time, I assume it's for 1 minute, and if they critically fail, they're enfeebled for 1 minute. Technically, rules as written, they're enfeebled 1 forever on a failure. Obviously that's not how it's supposed to work, but it's funny to point it out. Unfortunately, this focus spell heightens really poorly. The temporary hit points only go up by 5, and the damage only goes up by 1d12 every 2 spell ranks? So this is dealing 1d12 until character level 5, and then 2d12 is okay at that level, but it's still on a fortitude save. This is unfortunately the most underwhelming of the 4 Witchwarper focus spells at level 1, but who knows, maybe the time anomaly does get more at higher levels. And the quantum field is super easy to follow and really useful. Any enemy that starts a move action from inside your quantum field takes a -5 speed penalty, and any ally that starts their movement inside your quantum field gets a +5 foot speed penalty. And remember, this is a 15-foot radius. That is 30 feet in all directions, or 30 feet across, that your allies can end a movement in and then blast through with that extra 5-foot movement speed. And if they end their speed at the edge of the field, they can carry that 5-foot speed onto their next action. Really great stuff. Alright, and let's talk about the second subclass you need to pick for your Witchwarper, your Anchor. Because you are a paradox in reality, the universe is going to try to shunt you back where you belong. However, your Anchor of choice is what allows you to stay present in the current reality and use your powers. Your Anchor can be one of 3 things: core memories that keep you grounded, a focal point that you can hold your attention on to keep you grounded, or a physical object that you can interact with to keep you grounded. Listen, there's only so many ways I can say it. Each of these Anchor subclass choices only provide 2 benefits, a passive benefit and a unique action you can take. The Core Memories Anchor benefit allows you to access the memories and experience of you from alternate realities. You can pick any skill that you are already trained in and gain the Assurance skill feat for that skill, meaning that instead of rolling the dice, you can just take 10. So if you needed to climb a wall and you have decent athletic skill, you can just take 10 and auto climb. Additionally, if you're an expert in that skill and that skill can be used to recall knowledge, like Arcana or a lore skill, you gain the Automatic Knowledge skill feat for that day. And you also gain access to Restorative Recollection. For 1 action, you can reduce your own stunned condition by 2, or your own slowed condition by 1. You're going to find that all of these different anchoring actions are really simple in what they do, in that they just reduce conditions, which is useful. Albeit reducing stunned is not very useful, because at the start of your turn, you lose the stunned condition and lose that many numbers of actions. So this is literally only useful on stunned if you still have stunned left over after your turn has begun, which is almost never going to happen. Reducing your slowed value by 1, though, is phenomenal, as that can just turn a slow 1 into slow 0, completely negating the spell's effect forever. And if you already lost any actions, like you were slowed 1 at the start of your turn, you used Restorative Recollection and reduced it, then you can also recall knowledge for free as part of this action. The Focal Point Anchor benefit is kind of wild in my opinion. You just get steady spellcasting. If you would ever lose a spellcasting effect due to a reaction, you get a flat DC 15 check to just not lose it. Also, that feat is never worth taking on any class forever, so I don't blame them for putting it onto a subclass, but that is phenomenal to get for free. And the Intense Focus action allows you to reduce your Clumsy condition by 1, or ignore the Suppressed condition until the start of your next turn. The Suppressed condition is new to Starfinder. It's usually applied by weapons that spray and pray without hitting an actual direct single target, and it does this. Yeah, of course I know what it does. I've read the book and have not just been playing Neverwinter Nights all day. Don't judge me. And the tangible object keeps you grounded, it makes you comfortable, and allows you to think a lot clearer, giving you a +1 circumstance bonus to all perception checks and will saves against illusions and holograms. And if you get within 10 feet of an illusion or hologram, the GM rolls a secret check for you to disbelieve it without you having to actively do it yourself. And for one action, you can touch something real, which reduces your frightened or stupefied condition by 1, or if you happen to have neither of these conditions, you can just give yourself a +1 to will saves against fear effects. Not a great bonus for a 1 full action, not sure why you'd ever do that, but if you know you're gonna make a will save next turn, why not? The final thing worth mentioning here about the Witchwarper at level 1 is that it is a spontaneous spellcaster with a spell repertoire, so it does function a lot more like a sorcerer does than a wizard when it comes to actually using their spell slots. And that is everything you need to make a level 1 Witchwarper in the Starfinder 2e playtest. There is so much to play with here, 2 subclasses, each with multiple choices that do multiple things, along with being a full spellcaster. This is wild. I love all of the setup needed. Starfinder is doing something very interesting that Pathfinder hasn't done before, and that is increasing the base power level of some classes, however requiring setup to access it. And in the Witchwarper is the easiest example of this, where to use all of their best features, they do need to set up the quantum field first before they can do anything else. It's a really cool way to do it. It's similar to sort of like a monk getting into their stance, and I really love that kind of design. Setup into payoff. Phenomenal. I'd love to hear in the comments what you plan to do if you're playing a Witchwarper, if you're going to play a Witchwarper, or just cool ideas for a Witchwarper character. There are so many cool character designs just from a flavor standpoint of someone who should not exist in their current modern reality. We all kind of feel like that at times, don't we? Let me know in the comments below, and be sure to like the video while you're down there. Thank you so much for watching. Look forward to a ton more videos like this about the other 5 Starfinder 2e classes. I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day. And until next time, no nat ones.